Hey guys, how's it going? Here we are for another Let's Talk Reef. Today we are going to be talking about some of what we talked about yesterday. We're going to talk a little bit about some exciting things that are going to be starting tomorrow. I may have some news for you that you guys might be really interested in, and I can't wait to tell you about it. So, what's in store for today is another doorbuster. Not definitely. We're going to have that starting tomorrow. And then I want to focus in on kind of the topic of that doorbuster and get into some nerdy things, some control freak things, what's cool about that product. So that's what we're going to do today. How does that sound? And maybe, Vincent, do you think I should give something else away today?
Yes.
The guy behind the third wall says I should give something else away, but where are we on viewers right now?
63.
63, and I'm not getting a lot of love on the Facebook side. So YouTubers are commenting like crazy here. I don't know. I think if maybe we get viewers up to 150 or so, we might give something away. Yesterday, we did really great. We peaked in the low 200s and maintained all you guys throughout the entire stream, and we've had a lot of people rewatch that. So really excited that you guys were happy to see Let's Talk Reef show back up yesterday, and Tom and I were super happy to be here. So let's first stop and see who we've got here. So we got AJ. AJ, I'm so sorry. I know you stopped by the office yesterday. I was not available to meet with you, but let me know next time you're coming. I'll be happy to say hi and go and see what's going on. Patrick, thanks for being here from Facebook. That's awesome. Oh, we definitely got, maybe we'll see this guy a little bit later. So I do have a guest today. Dwayne will be on with us a little bit later. That'll be great. Who else do we have here? T-Bone. I don't know a T-Bone, but that's a pretty cool name. All right, but let's get started. So yesterday we had a great Let's Talk Reef. We talked about all the Neptune Systems products going on sale for Black Friday. They are 10% off. And these are the best prices that you are going to see on Neptune Systems products for the foreseeable future, right? I did have some, kind of news yesterday that we will be doing price increases after Black Friday, but right now we're keeping the current retail pricing and we're doing 10% off on that. So compared to what you will pay after Black Friday, we are looking at anywhere from 15 to 20% off, 10% off the price that you're going to see right now. So if you've been thinking about getting into the Apex system, Tom and I spent a lot of time yesterday talking to you why we love the Apex system. There is no better time to do that. And a lot of you guys are control freaks already, but some of you are maybe thinking about it. And if you're thinking about it, the Apex is over 15% off right now, right? It is $745, $744.95, and $135 off. So if you've been thinking about it, we've made our flagship system go on sale at over 15% off. So there is no better time. I've been getting feedback from my resellers today, our local fish stores today, and everyone's really happy to see that people are making purchases in the sense that they're growing their aquarium ecosystem, right? They're making themselves get the tools that'll allow them to be more successful. Right? And you could say, well, hey, this is just marketing speak, right? This guy up here, he's got his marketing hat on right now. But honestly, we want to see you guys successful. We think our products are a big part of why people can be successful long term. Ryan and Randy, have been talking about the 52 weeks of reefing, and it's easy to get started, but it's really hard to be successful long term. And the Apex is a big reason and a big tool of the way that you can get there to be successful long term. Because that's what we want to see. We don't want to see you successful for a year. We want to see you successful for years, multiple years, just like I have been, Vincent's been, Tom has been, Kurt has been, all the people here at Neptune Systems, all the people over at BRS. So Now, I want to let you guys know what tomorrow's doorbuster is going to be. So, this product is 10% off right now. So if you were to make this purchase right now, the product is 10% off. But I am going to do even better than 15% off. We are going to put one of our most popular products on sale, and we're looking. I wonder if anybody can guess what it might be. You know, there is a clue here in this image that you see me with right now, but we are going to put our dose at over 16% off. That's right, the dose is not going to be $270 for Black Friday. It is going to be $250 for Black Friday. It is literally the best price we have ever offered on the dose. And it is a very popular product. When people purchase this product, they get one. Most often, you know, they're going to come back in and add another one to their system, because it's not just used for one thing. It is a tool that can be utilized for a lot of different things, and that's what I'm going to go through today, telling you, you know, how the dose can help you be successful. And not only are we going to do a great discount on the dose, we're also going to do a great discount on our dose DDR combo. So the dose DDR is normally $450. At Black Friday, typically it's $405. This year, it's going to be $390 for the dose DDR combo, right? So you can't shake a stick at that. I don't know what that means, but people say that when it's a good deal. So can't shake a stick at that. And we will have those great deals here for you guys. And that is going to start tonight or tomorrow at Saturday at 12:01 a.m. The dose will be available at $250, and the dose DDR is going to be $390. Getting some great comments here. Is this while supplies last? Absolutely, right? So if our dealers run out of stock on this product, right, there will be no more after that, right? You will be only able to purchase a dose at the new retail price following Black Friday, right? So it's while supplies last. When we are out of dose, there will be no more dose. So that there is the doorbuster for tomorrow. Who's excited about that? Let's take a look at some of the comments here. I thank you, Patrick. I think it's a good price too. Where else we got? Good. Tank Envy. I'm happy to hear that you might be interested in a dose too. That's awesome. And Sean asked that question. Will they ask while supplies last? Absolutely. Can I use the dose by itself? No. We'll talk about that in a little bit. All right. So first off, you know, why the Neptune Systems dose, right? So here was the clue before we even started, but here's the Neptune Systems dose. It is one of my favorite products that we made out. It's been out for a long time. It's got two dosing heads. It's got a Aquabus connector on it. It's got a one-link connector on it. So if you don't want to use a power supply or an Aquabus cable, you can use the one-link connector. It's got an input for you to be able to connect up the DDR. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And it's got a power supply input. So if you have Aquabus and power supply, that'll work. It's made with a medical grade stepper motor. And this is one of my favorite parts about this product, right? Is when you pull this out, and anyone at a trade show or anything like that, we have usually this in the booth. And you know, if somebody's kind of on the fence about the dose, we usually just kind of hand it to you, right? And when we hand it to you, you know, it is a hefty piece of machinery. It is a stepper motor, variable stepper motor that can do literally drops, or it can do streams, so it can do gallons, right? So it allows you a lot of versatility. It has a head here, and we use a head that has really large farm tubing on the inside of it, right? And that really is part of what makes it a workhorse. It's got compression fittings on it. A lot of people will source these over to John Guest Fittings if they want. There's a DIY hack to be able to do that. But the compression fittings work great as long as you aren't using that RODI tubing. When you're using RODI tubing, it can be really hard to compress that. So the Guest Fitting mod is a nice fit for it. But out of the box, we give you tubing with it and everything you need to do to be successful. So it is a great product just as it stands before you add all of the software that Neptune system hooks up with that. So the dose is essentially used for three main things, right? It's used for additive dosing, it's used for automatic and manual water changes, and it's used for liquid feeding. Okay, and so that's basically the dose is a fluid metering system. If it's a liquid, the dose wants to be a part of that, right? So let's talk a little bit about how that sort of works with the Apex, right? Like anything, you can make that very complicated, and we're going to get into some of the complicated parts a little bit later. But the idea on the dose is to make it very easy, right? And so here is my dashboard, okay? I am going to click on the task function, okay? Task, if you've ever seen Let's Talk Reefs before, is basically Neptune System's way to kind of walk you through the setup of something. So if we go down to dose, you can see that there are several tasks associated with dose. It is dose additive, water changes, manual water changes, and dose calibration, okay? So if we are talking about additive dosing, which is what we want to do today, number one, we kind of tell you how to set it up, okay? So you got the dose, you got your liquid lines in. In this situation here, we're using the DDR. The DDR can be really cool because it, number one, has a really low center of gravity, okay? And so that means it's not going to tip over. You can't really see me right now on the screen, but it won't allow you to tip over. And then it also gives you a graphical demonstration of how full these are because we know how much liquid we're dosing and we know how much liquid we're pulling from those reservoirs. And then finally, it has two optical sensors in there that when the DDR gets below 20%, we'll send you an alert notification letting you know that, hey, it's time to refill it. Because how often do you sometimes forget some things like that? And then you think you're dosing, but there's actually no fluid in the lines, right? So the DDR can connect to it, but it is by no means required. You could just have two bottles there that you put the tubes into. That's no problem, okay? We basically first, if you have multiple dose on the system, you have to select this dose that you're going to use. I have one. And then you have to say which pump you're going to use. So if you connected up your alkalinity or calcium to the left side or the right side of the unit, right, you choose which one you want to use. And, you know, for me, the left side is my calcium. And then you basically say how much you want to dose. So you say the volume, when you want it to start, when you want it to end. Let's say I want to do 30 milliliters. So I put in 30 there. I want to do that over 24 hours, okay? And the dose basically is going to program it exactly like that, okay? Now we're going to get into a little bit later. No, actually, let's get into it now. So when we get over to the dose, and once we configure it, we can go into that setting, and we can see exactly how that's going to operate. We give you this level of granularity, right, where we let you know that we are going to basically separate that from 48 milliliters for me, you know, into 119 separate doses, right? And each dose is going to be 0.4 milliliters, right? So literally 4 drops, and that's going to happen essentially every 12 minutes, right? So we're not dumping solution into your system every hour. We're not dumping solution into your system, you know, every multiple times a day. We're doing that continuously in very small amounts each time. And that's something that the dose offers you just right out of the box, right? It's very easy to set up. It's very easy to use. Some people do prefer, right, to kind of, want to have a level of granularity on it. So you can set up the dose specifically very much the way you want it to, right? You can get in here to what we call profiles. All right, and profiles are like kind of how you want to do something. And so we can say, I want to run at 12 milliliters, 25 milliliters, 250 milliliters, all these different options per minute. And then we can say how much we want to dose, and then basically how many intervals we want to do that over. So if I want to do a single shot of maybe 60 milliliters, right, or 160, I guess, you can say exactly that, and you want to do one shot of it, but you need to make sure that you give enough time for it. So anyways, I'm getting a little bit into the weeds here, but the dose gives you that kind of flexibility to have complete control over your additive dosing. I'm going to talk a little bit when you pair that with the Trident. When you pair that with the Trident, it is a home run, complete home run. So another thing the dose is great for is not only additive dosing, but as I said, this is a mover of liquids. It is a workhorse of liquids. And so it can also be used for automatic water changes. And so automatic water changes sound really scary, right? And this concept is something that we kind of introduced when we released the dose, I believe in 2014, is, okay, you do 10 gallon water change a week, all right? What if we were to do that 10 gallons exactly the kind of the way that you would do additive dosing, right? Where we're always kind of putting some fresh water in, and then we're always pulling some old salt water out. That sounds really difficult to set up, but Neptune Systems has made that very easy. If you set up the dose essentially like this, right, where it pulls new salt water from a wet reservoir, puts that into your tank or your sump or something like that, and then you have the other motor pulling old salt water out, okay? You essentially, this allows for you to do this continuous water change. It's very easy to set this up. Again, you would say new salt water. You would say old salt water. And then we say how many gallons we want to do. The dose can do up to about 20 gallons per hour, but I would never run it that way, right? The idea is for this to be small amounts. So in the example of, let's use an example of like 21 gallons you want to do a week. 21 over 7 days is 3 gallons a day, right? So we would say 3 gallons, okay? We say, you know what, I want to do that from day to night, or maybe you want to do it just when you aren't home so you don't hear the sound of the motors. Maybe you want to do that at night. Maybe you want to have that dose out in your garage. You have a lot of different solutions there, okay? And essentially, that's all you need to do to set this dose up. We're going to constantly be putting water in and constantly be pulling water out, okay? Finally, the dose as a liquid mover, it can also do liquid food feedings, okay? This is a super cool concept in my opinion. This idea that allows you to take care of fish that have high metabolic needs, okay? These are fish like wrasses, these are fish like anthias, right? These are fish like mandarins, right? And maybe you don't have the fauna in the aquarium to be able to support those just naturally, all right? And fauna is like the copepods, it's you know, the little shrimp that can breed just naturally in your aquarium. You need to, when you don't have those just naturally inside your water column, you need to make sure that you're supplementing that feeding for those fish to be ultimately very successful. And it's difficult to do that, you know, with pellet food, right? Because oftentimes that pellet food is not something the fish is going to take to very naturally. And it can cause issues just in the sense of you don't get the, you know, the food goes in and it just sinks to the bottom so the fish don't get it, right? The liquid feeding will disperse pretty naturally if it's in a place of flow, okay? It can be a little bit complicated to set this up, but I'm happy to let you know that in a much younger Paul, this was a video I made in 2018, right? Look at all the hope and the, you know, the, that I have there in that picture, just so young. I think I was just, I don't think I was married yet even at that point. So Vincent's telling me no, every day just kind of blurs in, right? But I go through everything on how to set this up, helping you to calculate even the amount of milliliters that are going to be per foot of tubing that you have. And the idea here is to bring the food keep the food refrigerated, number one, right? Allow the dose to pull that food through the line, and then maybe you put 3 or 4 milliliters of phytoplankton, arthropods, oyster feast, any of these things. Then run the food backwards so it goes back into the line and it doesn't stay in the line to spoil, okay? And that's something that I walk you through step by painful step of how to set that up. And I'm kind of being dramatic there. It's not really that difficult, but it is a super cool video, and one that if you want to get into these more difficult and advanced fish, the dose can be that tool that's going to kind of allow you to do that, right? And that's a big thing, right? It's giving you the tools to allow you to be successful with what you want to do, right? So if you want to get into those more kind of colorful and exciting fish, those schooling fish, we want to help you get there, right? And the dose is a great solution for that. And so that's why I was saying kind of in the beginning, it's usually not when customers just, buy a dose, they'll buy the first one, right? Then they'll be like, wow, that was great. What else can I do? And then they'll buy another one for maybe automatic water changes. And then after that, they're, you know what? It's like kind of you keep graduating. That was the 100 level was additive dosing, 200 level was you started automatic water changes, and the 300 level, right, you get into that liquid feeding. And that is something that we kind of help you along with, and one product can do all of those things for you, right? So pretty cool, if I may say so myself, if I can pat our engineers on the back and give them a high five, that kind of thing. So that's pretty much the dose. So let's go. Vincent read my mind. I looked up and boom, we're back up to full screen. Let's pause for any questions. Do we have any good questions here, Vincent? All right. Will the push connect heads be available in the future? I do like those push connect heads. Will they be available in the future? It all comes down to how many people would want it and what is the cost going to be, right? And would you want to pay more for those heads than you would want to pay for the compression fitting heads? That's the question. So I think it's cool. If you want to do the mod out there, it's very well documented, and I encourage you that if the guest fittings are better for you, do that. So what else do we got? I like this one. How often should the dose be calibrated? So in the task, there was a task called dose calibration. The idea there behind dose calibration is those heads are going to be pretty accurate within about 1 milliliter or 2 without calibration. But when you are dosing maybe 3-4 milliliters a day of something, right, you want to make sure that it is very accurate to do that. So how we do that is we give you a graduated cylinder, number one. We basically, you hit a couple buttons. We dose out what we think would be 25 milliliters and then 40 milliliters. 40 milliliters. We dose out what we think is 40 milliliters, based on the current calibration inside the dose. You pick that up, you look at the graduated cylinder, and you see that it reads 39.5, okay? You have to read a meniscus, so if you haven't read a graduated cylinder again before, it's very easy to do, but just look it up. And I think we even have an image in the task of how to read it. You read that there, and you say, you know what, it did 39.5, right? So then, if we were to say 40 again, we would put 40 in, not 39.5. How often that should happen, it really depends on the amount of fluid that you're putting through the dose. So you got to understand that when something like this operates, right, you're turning this head. This head is turning every time. And just looking at this, right, you can see that it's putting pressure here on the outside walls. Am I looking at that right? So it's putting pressure there on the outside walls. As a result of that, the tubing inside is getting stretched. Okay, and so what that means is as it gets older and older and older, that's when it's time to replace. Frankly, I'm kind of the opinion of the best way to do this is if you're doing additive dosing, you're probably going to want to be replacing those heads every year to every year to year and a half. If you're doing automatic water changes, you're looking at those head replacements maybe every 6 months to a year. If you're doing like 20 gallons a day, you're replacing those heads pretty frequently, right? The heads can do, I think, like 1,000 hours on them, right? So by additive dosing, you're probably not there, but it does just keep that level of precision and accuracy in place. And what's far more important here is precision in place by doing that. So great question there. I went on for a little bit. What else we got? I don't know. All of them are probably fine. Do we ever plan to make a single head dose? Maybe. We'll see. Right now we got 2. and we find that most people are going to need to. If you don't need to, there are some, Ecotech makes a great product, right, that could be used as a single head that you could use now, and I'm sure will work with Apex Fusion in the future. What else we got? All right, I think we're going to kind of get into it. Am I being a little long-winded? I don't have anyone else here to balance me out in terms of like Tom or a guest yet. I'm looking forward for Dwayne coming on a little bit. But for now, I want to get into kind of the coolest part about the dose. And that it is when it is paired with the Trident. Yes, the Trident. If you don't know what the Trident is, I want to know where the rocket is that you live under. I want to know the address of that rock because sometimes I just need to get away too, and it would be great to get there. The Trident is our alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium titration machine, right? So it allows us to test your water, your alkalinity, your calcium, magnesium, 4 times a day of alkalinity, 2 times of calcium, magnesium, and does that with a high level of precision. Okay, this is a product that we've had out for several years, and it's a product that works so well with the dose, right? Because what the Trident allows the dose to do, it allows the dose to basically kind of be smarter than it already is, okay? And it does that by you saying what level you want to maintain, right? And what amount of liquid should maintain that, and then we press on the gas and step on the brakes as needed, right? We call it Trident controlled dosing. It sounds like something that would be super complicated, but it isn't. And let me get back into Fusion right here. I use it on my system to maintain, in my opinion, very high level of precision of alkalinity, calcium, magnesium. You can kind of see it jagging up and down, but those are very small differences that we spoke about yesterday. We're looking at maybe 0.2 of a difference between tests, right? Oh, it just went right into it. It's like my Apex knew exactly what I wanted. And I do that by Trident controlled dosing. Actually, I'm gonna go back to that. Let's go boom. And then I am going to compare what my dosing is doing. So I can go to my ALK dosing. And now we can see exactly how we're maintaining that, right? So you can see that when my kind of swings are starting to go up, I'm dosing more alkalinity. And this is like 0.4 of a milliliter kind of dosing levels, right? Multiple times a day. We do that very easily, and we do that again through a task, right? So there's a task called Trident controlled dosing. We select that. And the idea here is, the first thing is you want to make sure that your Trident has been operating on your system for 7 days, right? To make sure that we're getting precise levels, good levels of accuracy, making sure everything is right. The second thing we need to make sure that we know is kind of the amount of solution that we normally would do to maintain the level we want the Trident to help maintain. So in this example here, I have alkalinity that I'm going to try to control, and I want to control my alkalinity pump. I could name my alkalinity pump. And so what level do I want to maintain? I like to maintain a level of 8.5 DKH, and I typically do that with about 45 milliliters a day. Okay. One thing that we found out with the release of the Trident is that this makes complete sense, but consumption of alkalinity during the day is far higher than it is during the night. When photosynthesis isn't occurring, right, you aren't necessarily going to get more alkalinity consumption. Calcium pretty much stays unchanged, but alkalinity, you have far higher levels of consumption during the day compared to what you have at night. Okay, and this is only going to be the case for SPS aquariums, mixed reef aquariums. LPS and softy tanks, you're not going to see this phenomenon as much. But we can say that essentially we want to dose almost 70% more during the day than we want to dose at night. So that 45 milliliters, I'm doing 70% of that during the day. And in this situation here, we kind of just give you a synopsis, right? The most we'll ever do during the day is 40.5. The least we'll ever do during the day is about 20. And that's because of all the kind of the controls that we have here, right? When I am all the way down to 8.1, we're going to step on the gas all the way, right? We're not keeping up with your alkalinity consumption, so we are going to do a significant amount more dosing as a result of that. And so that's the next thing I kind of want to unpack. How do we actually do that, right? So we do that, and I'm going to change things up a little bit just because round numbers are easier than in things like 45 milliliters. But let's say, for example, I did want to dose 100 milliliters, right? And let's say I did want to maintain that alkalinity of 8.5. At this point, I'm saying that I want to have a range of 0.5, which means that I will essentially be dosing as low as 8.0 and as high as 9.0. Essentially, I'm kind of giving a target range of 1 DKH. If for some reason the Trident were to test a level much lower than 8 or a level much higher than 9, it would turn off Trident-controlled dosing, right? So sometimes I see these things online that say, oh yeah, my Trident started saying that I was, 10 DKH, and it just kept dumping more and more alkalinity into it. It's not necessarily the Trident doing that, right? It's your dosing doing that at the normal level that you said it should dose, okay? We stop Trident-controlled dosing once you get outside the bounds of the range, okay? The next thing, well, I just kind of said what that means. So basically at 8.1, we're exerting maximum influence, and 8.99 will be removing maximum influence. So the most we'll ever dose is 8.01. The least we'll ever dose is 8.99, okay? Limit means that essentially we can do 30% more or 30% less than your nominal dose. So in this situation, we would be doing 70 milliliters at the least amount and 130 milliliters at the most amount. So I just want to give you guys an example. So the maximum influence at this point is 50%. It's not 100% maximum influence because we're at 8.25. That's halfway in between 8.5 and 8.0, 50%. 50% of 30 milliliters, which is the amount, the maximum range that we can do, is 15 milliliters. So in this example, we would dose at a rate of 115 milliliters a rate until your next test. So for example, if one test is at 9 o'clock and the next test is at noon, between 9 and noon, we're dosing at a rate of 115 milliliters evenly over that period of time. So that's maybe a couple more drops every dose than usual. If we use an example of 8.6, now we're a little bit above that range. We're going to push on the brakes a little bit, right? And that's basically a 20% influence, which is 0.1 divided by 0.5. So 20% of 30 is 6 milliliters. So in this, we're exerting very little influence on that because you're very close to your target range. We're only going to dose at a rate of 94 milliliters until your next test. Not saying that we're going to be dosing 94 milliliters, but a rate to achieve 94 milliliters over a 24-hour period. I hope that kind of makes sense for you guys. I feel like a lot of times people are spending a lot of effort trying to understand kind of how Trident-controlled dosing is working, and there's a lot of misconception in that. So I felt it'd be nice to spend some time, just going through exactly how the Trident influences the dose. But you don't need to really worry about all that, right? We spent that time where you just say, I want to maintain this, it should take this amount of fluid, and we'll take care of the rest, okay? I just felt that maybe you guys wanted to pull back the curtain a little bit and know how that worked, okay? I like Ted's comment here. I'm glad the Trident does this for me because math is hard. I absolutely agree. If I had to try to explain this to people and they had to do it manually, I'm getting some gray hairs over here. I think I would have a lot more. So I think you guys are doing really great helping other customers out there. And I think it's really great to see the success that people have had when going with Trident controlled dosing, which is just awesome. So let's pause, take a deep breath. I've been like talking a lot here, but let's see here. Do we have any good questions in here, Vincent? Anything you want to show up? Does it track the number of hours? I really like that question, Mike, and that's something I'd love to see happen, but that's not something that's super available just on the top side of it. We can track the number of hours that the motor has run. And if you would need help with that, our support team is very happy to assist you in that. So good question. I've always would love to see that in the actual interface and things like that. It's been on the board. It's always what rises to the top, right? So any other thing else good in there, Vincent? Oh, this is a good question about automatic water changes. Where is the best location to put the dose, right? The best location to put the dose, in my opinion, is near the water source. So if you have your new salt water in the garage and that's where you mix it up and that's where you maintain it and everything else, in my opinion, it's best to put the dose right there. We sell 30-foot Aquabus cables, we sell 30-foot Aquabus extension cables, and you can run that cable all the way from your apex. You're gonna have to run that line anyways, right? So it's good to put the dose out there because number one, if the dose, stepper motors, if you're familiar with them, if you have a 3D printer or anything like that, they do make some noise, okay? When you're moving a lot of water, it's nice for that to be out in the garage and all that kind of stuff. So it has basically a double reason of why. And then secondly, it's just easier to work with in that situation. Next question is, does it matter how far the dose can push? Because it is a stepper motor, horizontal distance matters very little. Vertical distance can matter a little bit, and I believe it's a 19-foot vertical head pressure or a 21-foot. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. There's something else that I'm thinking about with vertical head pressure right now, and so I might be confusing it, but it's anywhere from 19 to 21 feet. So, and you can do like 4 feet, 6 feet, 3 feet, over different distances. It doesn't really matter. Great question. Great question. What else we got? I think we are fairly good here in questions about the dose. This isn't necessarily about the dose, but I did want to bring on a guest today who we can talk about Trident controlled calcium reactor control, right? And I'll call him the grandfather of controlling the calcium reactor with a Trident. I'd like to welcome Dwayne. How you doing, Dwayne?
Pretty good, Paul. Hi, Paul. Everyone on Facebook and Vincent in the background. Glad to be back on the live stream again.
Yeah, so Dwayne, you could maybe call him a regular. He has been on Let's Talk Reef 2 or 3 times. Dwayne has been a long time Neptune Systems customer and has been using our product for a number of years. And that tank behind speaks volumes to that. Dwayne, did you put photo mode on? You didn't put photo mode on, did you?
No, this is my regular lighting.
Okay, so let's get photo mode on there. You know what? Dwayne trusts me so much that I have control over his aquarium. I'm pulling it up right now. Good old Trito. And I'm gonna turn photo time on. And
There we
you
go.
did, oh wow. Dwayne, I love your tank, man. It is, I think a lot of people just kind of aspire to what it is that you're doing behind you. It's really awesome.
That's a lot of work. I think you guys know that. So
Yeah, I hope
couldn't
we
do
make
it
a
without
little.
my Apex.
Yeah, I hope we make that easier on you. So let's just talk about this tank for a second, right? I can't not talk about this tank. We're getting a great image right now with just your phone where it is, so I don't think you need to move it. But
Yeah.
tell us just a little bit about this tank if you have a second.
It's a 210-gallon display tank with a couple hundred gallons in a remote tank room behind the house. A 150-gallon sump, skimmer, ozone. Have a dose that I dose AcroPower with and Calcwasser. Very high.
Uh-oh, Dwayne, we lost your audio. Just me or? He's going. He's going, guys. Oh, man. I think it's probably his AirPods. Yeah. Yep. I would love to hear what he's saying right now, wouldn't you guys? We'll give him another second here to realize that he's lost his audio. I think it's his AirPod, and he's going to switch it over right now.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, and here we go. Oh, that was a good idea, Hector. I should have adjusted his lights to give him a hint.
Nope.
Nope. Here we are again. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Good to see you once again.
Do you want me to bring out guitar?
Yeah. All right.
There you are.
Dwayne, oh. No, we lost him.
There we go. I have you back now.
All right, we can hear you, but we cannot see you anymore.
Still can't hear a word you're saying, though.
Oh, you can't hear me.
I'm not sure what's going on.
We'll give him another second, guys. All right, so this is super disappointing because Dwayne was going to take us through his calcium reactor Trident controlled dosing here. Let's let him leave the live stream for a second, and I'm going to try to bring him back in. But let me go ahead and they're all getting what I was doing a little bit ago. It's funny. So, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about how Dwayne uses the Trident to allow his calcium reactor to work. Okay, so if you're familiar with a calcium reactor, and I don't use one, so I may kind of mess some things up here, but I feel like I have a pretty good understanding on it. So basically, you maintain a pH, right, that is going to break down the reactor media inside the calcium reactor. This calcium reactor media basically is what helps maintain your alkalinity, and it is what helps to maintain your calcium, okay? As a result of that, you basically keep that slightly acidic to be able to break those things down. We may have Dwayne coming back. Dwayne, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can barely hear you, but that'll work. We can make do.
Okay, okay. So Dwayne, I was just getting started telling people about calcium reactor control, just in general, without a Trident, right? And essentially, we were talking about how we keep a slightly acidic environment to break down that calcium reactor media, which then supplies both the calcium and the alkalinity for the aquarium. Did I mess any of that up?
Nope.
All right, good. So first off, let's kind of start with how you control that calcium reactor just normally. Okay, and so I believe you're going to do that with a pump that pushes water through the calcium reactor, and then you're going to do that with a CO2 solenoid. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so the way that you have your CO2 solenoid set up is essentially that it should be on when pH is greater than 6.45, and then off when pH is less than 4.30. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this isn't how most people would set up a calcium reactor, but because you're using Trident-controlled dosing, it allows you to do this, okay?
Yes.
And essentially, we were kind of joking earlier, a better way to say this, because you always keep your pH above 6.45, would probably just to have it be set on, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily need that on statement. The off there would be good, because if things just went totally wrong, you wouldn't want to melt all of that media, and even at 4.3, you're probably getting close to that, right?
Anything less than 6.2 starts to get dangerous. You can liquefy the media in the reactor.
Right. So, as a result, and then basically, if you were to set this up with without a Trident, you would probably have the on be what, 6.7, 6.6, and the off be maybe 6.5, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then with the carbon doser, you can adjust that bubble count so that you can keep that pretty rock solid without having to really. Those would be your fail safes more than anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then we bring in the Trident, right? So let's talk about that. So you have this outlet here. It's called a virtual outlet, okay? This is an outlet that isn't something physical, but something that the Apex can turn on or off as a result of something that it monitors. And then we can use that in the programming, okay? And that's your wide open here, right?
Yeah, and the idea with this is that the reactor is going to run slightly harder than I need it to. So it's always my alkalinity is just going to barely be climbing uphill, and when it gets to there, this Trident programming kicks in and takes over the CO2 regulator for me. And
Exactly. So basically, you're saying I don't want my alkalinity to go above 8.62 right here, right? And so we're turning off. We're turning this outlet essentially that's normally, on, right? We're turning this outlet off if it ever gets above 8.62, right? Because when it's above 8.62, you don't want to stay wide open anymore. You want to be wide closed.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then we got to talk about this throttle. And this throttle is kind of really kind of interesting stuff, okay? So you have this statement here that says OSC 1550, right? What that means is be off for 15 minutes, be on for 5 minutes, right?
Yep.
That's what I told you, right?
So the idea with this is that in a especially a high demand SPS system, I don't want to just turn off my regulator for 6 hours between tests. I could test sooner, but then of course I go through more reagents. So I figured I'd just go with the standard 6 hours, seems plenty. The idea is that it just slows the regulator or the reactor down rather than completely shutting it off. And ultimately it saves on, I don't have to try to go from just regular tank water, bringing it back into that melting range. It keeps it within a melting range, but it melts it slower.
So if I can kind of summarize all this for everyone, right? Essentially what you're doing with a calcium reactor is the way that you arrived at that 15.5, right, was you kind of testing different variables, right? You trying to maintain, being really close to it and maintaining a consistent pH and maintaining a consistent alkalinity without necessarily the Trident exerting influence. And that's how you arrived at that 15.5, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. So that then we're going to go back to the CO2 here so we can kind of explain all this out, right? So essentially, Dwayne is keeping this on all the time with this 6.45 statement, okay? Then what he is doing, and essentially it's on, it's putting CO2 into the calcium reactor, right? Keeping that effluent acidic, putting alkalinity and calcium into his tank. But then when we turn the throttle on, right, and we turn that throttle on for 5 minutes, we say stop doing that, right? And then we keep that throttle on all the time when wide open is off, right? So basically that throttle is saying, whoa, we're above 8.62, just keep the CO2 off for a little bit, And then as soon as it falls below 8.62, your calcium reactor goes back to that normal 15.5 sort of operation, right?
Yeah, and this kind of helps me be a little bit lazy, and the idea is that I can just kind of keep my alkalinity at 8.5 to 8.65 or so. It's been a little bit more erratic lately, but you can see by the graph it's definitely a pretty smooth flow.
You're having higher consumption right now is what's going on, right?
Yeah, I just did a major. I've been tearing down. The tank is getting so grown in, I can't clean the glass. So I've been stripping out some large colonies, and it affects the ecosystem. So my reactor tends to, or the alkalinity tends to either be plummeting or skyrocketing right now.
As soon as you cut up the coral, they stop consuming alkalinity for a little bit, but then it's like, oh cow, we need to grow back, right? And so growth just goes out the window, within a couple weeks after fragging. I could bring you down here to California, and you could maybe spend an hour on my tank. I need to be hacked up, dude. Every time I'm cleaning my glass right now, I'm running into coral. It's no good,
I know.
And I just haven't had any time.
My blanket response, Paul, is more flow and more food.
More flow and more food. That is always the answer, right? So, anyways, I just kind of wanted to get into some geeky stuff today. I said like different like 10 times in the first 2 minutes of my live stream yesterday. I guess I was kind of like focused. I don't know. And I think that this getting into the weeds like this is fun. You don't you, Dwayne?
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, you
So-
know, hey, go ahead.
There's been some questions about the programming coming up lately. With Richard Ross is getting questions in the background. I typically do as well. And if anybody's interested in that calcium reactor programming, Mark Levinson has it on his website on a blog with Melev's Reef, and I have my write-up is on Reef to Reef. Anybody has questions, they can ping me on the Facebook group, and we can give them the link there. So there's a few resources for this programming out there for calcium reactor users.
I think the hardest part, you know, number one, going to a calcium reactor is a different sort of control rather than dosing. Dosing is something people can put their heads around a little bit more easily, right? And so for beginning aquarists, it's a good option. But when you get to tanks of your size and level of growth you had, you can't run that without a calcium reactor. Right? I mean, you could, but you'd be getting so much two-part solution that it doesn't make sense, right? So
yeah, it's definitely not cost effective.
It's not cost effective. Oh, we lost him again. This guy is. I love Dwayne, man. This is horrible. Anyways, we were kind of wrapping it up, you know. But that's one thing that I didn't talk about yesterday. The community part of this, you know, that we do here, you know, in the control freak world is one of the best parts about Neptune Systems products, right? It allows us to, you know, help each other out and allow each other to be successful, right? I talk to a lot of people and I love giving people insights, and I get insights from them too. And it's just a lot of fun, you know? So for all those other reasons that we've talked about, just the community in general is a big reason why. So I think we're probably going to wrap up. I keep saying we were going to go shorter, but here I am again at 50 minutes. Maybe I do have a lot of words. What do you think, Vincent? He's just sitting there laughing at me. But I had a lot of fun today. So let's review. First off, let's see if I do this right. We've got 10% off on the entire product line. Then, on top of that, we have a doorbuster that we announced yesterday. We have Apexes at $135 off, right? That is more than 15% off the Apex system. Today, I announced this guy right here. Starting tomorrow, the dose will be at more than 16% off. It is the best price that Neptune Systems has ever offered on the dose. We are looking at $50 off on the dose. And if you're looking for a great reservoir container with a low center of gravity, the dose DDR combo as $60 off, the best price it's ever been at. Okay? So we're giving you the tools to be successful because we want to see that. And we hope that we are those tools that can help get you there. You know, and I love the interactions, guys. I love, you know, you guys coming in here on these live streams and being a part of this. This has been great. I am not going to have any live streams over the weekend, but I have more doorbusters for us on Monday. That's right. There might be more on Monday, and I'm looking forward to what we might have available for you. Now, before we wrap, Vincent, what was our high count? We didn't get there. That's a shame because, you know, I can't not give anything away. Let's do it. Let's give away a dose. Let's do it. We're going to give away a dose. We're going to do it. We're going to get people here. It's a lot of fun. Vincent, spin that wheel. Spin that wheel, Vincent. He's spinning. Here it goes. Round and round, round and round, and stop. What we got? Melanie Simpson. Melanie Simpson, congratulations. You have a dose. You have about 1 minute here to check in, you know. if you are looking forward to getting a dose. Melanie Simpson, come on, pop in, and I have a Neptune Systems dose for you. This is like that long, awkward pause, right? The me. I love the me. Oh, she's here. Great. That's awesome. Melanie, I'm so happy that we were able to get you a dose here. The best way to reach us is just message us on Facebook if you do the Facebook thing. If you don't do the Facebook thing, send us an email to sales, that's S-A-L-E-S, at neptunesystems.com, sales@neptunesystems.com, or just message us on Facebook. We'll get your info. We'll get a dose out to you. All right, guys. Let's wrap it up. 10% off Neptune, $50 off starting dose starting tomorrow at midnight, and $135 off the Apex. Hope you can join the family.
Those is tonight at midnight.
Tonight at midnight, yes.
You said tomorrow at midnight.
Tonight, tomorrow. So it's kind of the same thing, right? So Saturday, 12:01 a.m. dose, $50 off. All right, guys. Thank you so much.